Hey there, welcome back to the channel, and this is video number 1 of the 1990 Kawasaki ZX7, or what will be a ZXR750 restoration. That one right behind me. Stay tuned. So, as I said in the intro there, this is a 1990 Kawasaki ZX7, and it is going to be restored in the European colors, the red, silver, and black of a ZXR750. The reason for that is I just want something different this time. I've got a green 1990 already here. And this is the green 1989 right here, and this one needs to be just something a little bit different. Plus, I love that red, silver, black color scheme. It looks really, really, really good. So a little bit of backstory on this before we get into the teardown and why I'm starting this bike before that one is finished. So you may recall from an earlier video, if you haven't seen the video series on the 89, there's a whole raft of videos out there on the restoration of this bike that's in progress. But short and sweet version of the story is I got both of these bikes at the same time from the same guy, and he had purchased these from different sellers probably a year or so before I purchased them off him. He had ideas of restoration, and he bought that one as a parts bike and that one as the main bike, I think. But he got them from different people. But coincidentally, when I started the restoration on this 89, the exhaust system on it was off a 1990, so you couldn't get to the drain plug. And by coincidence, really good lucky coincidence, the exhaust system on this 1990 is actually an 89 exhaust system, so you actually couldn't get to the drain plug on that one. So the difference between the two, between 89 and a 90, one of the many differences, the drain plug on an 89 is kind of dead center of the oil pan. And because of that, their exhaust system kind of goes from a 4 into 2 into 1. And where it splits into 2, gives you access for that drain plug right between those pipes. So when you put a 1990 pipe header on an 89, it actually blocks access to that drain plug. Similarly, on the 90, the drain plug is actually set off to one side because it's supposed to be a straight 4 into 1. And when you put an 89 on it, and it's got the 2 pipes coming down, one of those pipes will block the drain for the oil. So all that long-winded rambling explanation to say, I have to start this bike's restoration because I need to pull the pipes off it. This was the bike that was up and running. It sounded fine. There was no smoke and all of that kind of thing. That was the one that I'd never heard run, and I did get it running in an earlier video. So this one, I know it runs. So at the risk of a long-winded and rambling introduction, I'm going to continue on with that ramble and just kind of give you my thoughts on the kind of work that it's going to take to restore this bike. And it's going to be a pile of work. I mean, they always are a pile of work, but for those of you who are familiar with the ZXR750 or the ZX7s, these frames are not supposed to be black, right? They're supposed to be silver gray. The swing arm is supposed to be the same color. The brackets for down here for the brakes are supposed to be just kind of natural aluminum. These are supposed to be gold. This is supposed to be silver. And the list goes on. This is not supposed to be painted, but it is. This fender's not supposed to be painted, but it is. This is the wrong color green. This is supposed to be gold. These are supposed to be just a clear-coated, natural brush-finished aluminum. The list goes on. Not supposed to be painted black. Not supposed to be painted black. Not supposed to be painted black. Not supposed to have a black honeycomb mesh over them. not supposed to have a mesh epoxied on the back side, not supposed to have that epoxied on, not supposed to have that epoxied in the back, wrong turn signals. You know, these, all the foot peg brackets, not supposed to be black. Foot pegs, not supposed to be black. These shin guards, not supposed to be black. Shifter, not supposed to be black. Like somebody got a discount on black spray paint. This stuff, not supposed to be spray painted black. So I'm going to be going through an awful lot of aircraft stripper to get all of the paint off this bike. This bike, everything was stripped and polished already, and it looked simply horrible. I'm not a big fan of polished aluminum, as you may recall, but it made the work to get it ready for paint really, really easy, because the wheels were already stripped, the frame, the swing arm, everything. There was no paint anywhere. It made it really, really simple to prep that for epoxy primer and for paint. And this is going to take us more, well, it's going to take more work to strip this bike back to the bare aluminum than it will be to paint it. So yeah, it's going to be a brute of a job, but underneath, I'm hoping that the bulk of everything else that's there is okay. But you know, you don't really know until you get into these things, right? You kind of hope for the best, expect the worst, and you probably get something in between. But there are always, I've said this before, I'll say it again, you know, what you see skin deep, that's not the whole story. It never is. There's always something horrible lurking underneath, inevitably. And so you just have to prepare yourself for that. If you're going to get into a restoration of one of these old bikes, prepare yourself, prepare to be disappointed, prepare to be angry, prepare to be in disbelief, prepare to shake your head a lot, because, you know, these bikes from back in the 80s and the 90s have been through, you know, a lot of owners. Sport bikes like this have been ridden hard, put away wet. Sometimes they're held together with duct tape and baler twine. A couple of bubbas have owned these things, so you know they haven't been necessarily subject to the best maintenance or the proper sort of replacement parts in some cases. People exercise questionable judgment over the lifespan of one of these motorcycles. So you know, it's just the way it is. You go in with your eyes open. You don't know until you get in there. And that's just the way it is. So you can't get too bent out of shape over what you find, because that's just part of the game, right? It's part of the process, part of the hobby. If you go into these things thinking that it's just going to be a quick scuff with some sandpaper and throw some new paint at it, and you'll be rolling along the road, then you're in for an absolute rude awakening. That's my experience anyway. All right, so here's the next thing that I'll say, as anybody who's contemplating getting into a project like this, is the cost. So you can get yourself a complete bike. You know, the cost of just doing paint and decals on a bike like this. So consider the fact that the bodywork has to have 3 colors on it, right? It's going to be red, silver, black, the same as this is going to have to be green, pearl white, and blue. Same color combo, plus the clear coat, plus your primer, plus all of your products to actually do the preparation and the repairs, full set of decals for it. You will not get any change, certainly not here in Canada, at a $1,500 Canadian just for the product. Just for the paint, just for the materials, just for the decals, all of that stuff, in order to cosmetically get this thing to look good, is going to be a minimum of $1,500 for a tricolor bike. That's just the way it is. That doesn't include any labor. That's assuming you're doing it all yourself. That's just kind of the outlay out of your pocket to get this thing the right color and looking good. Then you need tires, right? There's another $500 for a couple of tires. By the time you buy the tires and get them mounted, then let's say another $500 for brakes and bearings and caliper kits and that kind of stuff and pads. That's an easy $500 for you know, that bearings for the wheels and the headstock and all that kind of thing. And then you go up from there, right? It's whatever else you find along the way that adds money, right? So if you're content with things like this being wrong because they're black, or you want to try to go through the process of stripping this sort of stuff, then you can kind of save yourself a few bucks there for sure. I ended up buying another set that hadn't been painted. Inevitably you find these things with a broken windshield, so that, you know, those things can cost you, you know, $200-300. Luckily this bike came with a new one already, so that was kind of nice. But yeah, and then you need, you know, fork seals and fork oil. So, you know, there's another, you know, $100 or so. Engine oil and all the usual stuff that you have to do, the minor maintenance stuff that you're going to be doing anyway. I mean, it just adds up and adds and adds and adds and adds. That's just the way it goes. So, you know, it doesn't take long to get to, you know, $3,000, $4,000 or more, depending on what you're finding, to do one of these restorations. So the cost of the bike plus $3 or $4 grand, that is not out of the ordinary. And if you find really bad things, then of course it costs even more than that. So again, just not trying to put anybody off the whole process. I mean, it is what it is. You go in with your eyes open, but it's not cheap. Okay, so just to demonstrate kind of case in point around this stuff just kind of costs money and you don't know what's underneath. The very first thing I've done is just taken the seats off, okay? And then initially, right out of the gate, the snorkel is missing. There's a kind of a tubular snorkel, a rubber snorkel that has a white cage inside it that's supposed to fit right here, and it's not there. So I just looked on eBay, and of course, wouldn't you know it, the last time I looked, there was like 3 or 4 of these things for sale, and now none, 0, gone. Okay, just for giggles, I put the booster pack on, and I'm just going to see if she'll happen to fire up. I don't know if it will, but we're going to give it a go. Coughed a little bit there. This starter switch here is pretty funky as well. It's not working that well. She's running, but she's not running on all cylinders. And I was playing with the choke there for a little bit to get it to rev up, but it's running. I thought, I'm just not going to feel right if I don't actually fire this thing up before I start working on it. So, and everybody wants to see an old bike start up before the restoration process begins, right? So there we go. It did start up. Whether it was really running on all 4 cylinders or not, I would tend to say no. But those carbs have not been touched, and everything needs to be gone through, of course. So let the games begin. Let's get this thing stripped down, and I can start pulling the pipes off. Okay, so I'm going to mention it again for anybody that's tuning into my channel kind of for the first time to see this restoration about what I do. If you've already seen this sort of stuff before on my channel, skip ahead a couple of minutes and then you can pick up the video again. But basically what I do when I'm starting my restorations or all through the process is anything I take off the bike. So in this case, the seats are off and the solo cowl has been removed from the passenger seat. So everything is bagged and labeled. So the screws for the seat, screws that attach the solo cowl, and everything's got a number, and the number corresponds to the step I write in the book. So remove seats, and they happen to have the wrong screws, so I make a note of that. Remove the solo cowl, it's got a number, everything corresponds. So every single step I take is recorded in the book. Every single screw that I remove is bagged and tagged, labeled, and throughout the entire process I take photographs. When I think I have enough photographs, I take more, because inevitably through the reconstruction process, the rebuild, when you're building everything back up again, you're gonna miss something, or you don't know how it goes or how it's routed. And of course it helps if you have access to factory shop manuals for that kind of stuff, but nonetheless, having photographs these days, when everybody's got a cell phone to take pictures, take every picture you can from every angle you can, and it just makes the whole rebuilding process so much easier when you can go back and reference that kind of stuff. So. All right, so the seat side panels are off, and just so you can see what we're dealing with here. Generally speaking, not too bad. This one's been kind of bodged in a number of places, so this whole section here is kind of screwed up royally, as you can see there. So that needs to be repaired. There are two mounting lugs missing. One's missing there, the other one's missing there, so they'll have to be remanufactured. And then of course somebody has decided that these metal mesh grills, chicken wire, or whatever it is, should be in there, so all that's going to have to be carefully removed, because that's wrong. As you would maybe recall, I've manufactured these before out of plastics. Take a mold from a good panel, and then you can put them on there. So I will be fixing that. This is the other side. So all the tabs are intact on this. This one has been snapped off before, but somebody has plastic welded it on, which is fine. Same nasty chicken wire mesh, and all the foam is actually intact in these, and a lot of times this stuff is missing or it's really badly deteriorated. I mean, this isn't in perfect shape because it's 30 some odd years old, but still. So I'm going to start soaking the bolts and the nuts there. I guess the nuts and studs for the exhaust manifold to make the removal a little easier. And you can't be in a rush with that sort of stuff. So I'm gonna soak that stuff for several days before I venture into trying to get them off. And I'm gonna alternate between these three. Why am I doing? Well, I have them, and I find them all to be very good. All of them are better than WD-40 in my opinion. Which one's better than the other, can't say. Because I don't know, that's probably one of the reasons I'm going to use all three, just to cover my bases, I guess. And there's just no way to know realistically how long it's been since these headers were removed. The oil doesn't look bad. So it's not like it's pitch black, looking like molasses in there. It isn't. It looks pretty good, so it can't have been that long as far as miles and whatnot on there. So you would think that those things would come off without too much difficulty, but why take the chance? Just better to soak that stuff. We're gonna start with the PB Blaster. it is a bit of a pain to get in here everywhere, but use a flashlight like I'm doing here. So like I've said, I think before, my experience is anyway, when it comes to getting off stubborn nuts and bolts, like don't rush it. Like it just ends in tears, I find, well, certainly for me, if I go at this stuff prematurely, and I don't take the time to soak with penetrating oils and all that kind of stuff, you know, you just end up stripping things, snapping things off. The last thing I want to do is have one of those studs snap off in the head, and then I've got to drill it and extract it and do all that kind of nonsense. So also, because this is the first video in a series for this restoration, the other thing I will say is, and again, those who have tuned into my channel before will already know this, so apologies if I'm repeating myself here. But if you're going to work on Japanese motorcycles, make sure you have a set of JIS screwdrivers, Japanese Industrial Standard. I've got two sets. These orange ones are brand new because I've had these other ones so long that a couple of them are starting to wear down a little bit. Like this kind of middle-sized one is kind of starting to get a little bit worn. If I could get it to focus, there we go. Starting to get a little bit worn on the tip there, and it's becoming a problem. So, and those who know, but this is not a Phillips head. And the screws and fasteners on these bikes are not Phillips fasteners. They're JIS, Japanese Industrial Standard, and you know, especially in things like carburetors and all that kind of good stuff, you don't want to be using a Phillips screwdriver. So just for giggles, we're going to point out some of the differences between the 1990 and the 89 that I've made note of as I've been going through the process. Plus what I've heard from others. So what I'm hearing from others around the engine is that there's different pistons, rods, and differences in the head. The oil pan is different, so maybe the pickup is a little bit different in there as well. Positioning of the drain plug is different because it's got a different pan. The 89 and the 90 have different radiator setups, different placement of the oil filter, between the two, quite different. The frames are similar, very, very similar, but not the same. The mounting area here for the swing arm pivot is different between the two. The pipes are different between the two. The 89 pipes is a 4-into-2-into-1, whereas the 1990 is a 4-into-1. Swing arm is different between the two. The rear hugger is different for the two. The battery box is different between the two. The air box is different. The mounting bracket, this mounting bracket here, that holds the tool tray and whatnot, is different. On the 1990, it has a cutout in it. On the 89, it's solid. Because the swing arm is different and the hugger is different on the two, there's a slightly different chain guard on there. The fuel tap, the petcock is different between the two. On the 1990, as you see here, it's kind of the plastic knob, and on the 1989, it's a kind of a chrome bezel with a more basic tap handle on it. Aside from that, it's pretty similar, I think, but again, similar but not identical. I'm also not sure if the 89 ever had these kind of grab handle / cargo hooks on it. It's possible, but I don't know for certain. Okay, here's the stuff that annoys me to no end. So somebody decided obviously that it was a good idea to paint the frame of this black, but they clearly did it with everything still on the bike, and so you get this kind of nonsense here where you get black overspray on the reservoir. But again, you can't be surprised by what you find. It's just therapeutic to gripe about it. That's about the size of it. You can't, as I've said before, you can't be surprised, can't be shocked, you can't get too upset. It's just the way it is. But you know, nevertheless, it doesn't stop me complaining. On the plus side of things, it's kind of nice to see that the foam, the anti-vibration foam is still intact around these headlights. That's kind of unusual to find. Normally that stuff is kind of long since fallen off and rotted away. There's supposed to be some rubber bumpers under here. I have some extras, spare ones that'll go in there, but instead, because they were missing, somebody has put this beautiful fake chrome trim around the bottom. You know, if nothing else, I guess it has stopped the metal of the tank eating into the frame, but you know, that'll get fixed along the way as well. So when whoever decided that, you know, it was a good idea to paint everything black, really did paint everything black. I mean, the upper stanchions on the forks, and even down in here, the triple clamps are painted. I would guess that they painted, you know, everything here has been painted. Why you would do that, I don't know. They just rattle canned everything. The part that worries me a little bit is kind of trying to get paint off these. We'll have to think about that, and exactly the same problem is with this rear fender. I'll try an inconspicuous spot first, but it might end up being better as opposed to trying to strip it with acetone and hoping that the original finish is underneath there, which it likely won't be. Cleaning that paint off in some way, shape, or form, and then just refinishing it in a flat or semi-gloss color so it looks more like the original finish, because you know that's not how they look. And somebody thought it was a good idea to cut this section of the hugger out, so there's a piece missing there. That is just sacrilege, because those those huggers are 1 year only item, and just for cosmetics and looks, somebody thought that would look better, hacked out of there. And again, I shake my head, things that people do. But you know, likely, let me try to be fair about my critique here. A lot of these kinds of things were done to bikes back, you know, this is a 1990. It was probably sometime in the 90s, maybe the mid 90s, where, you know, it didn't matter as much because these bikes weren't rare then, right? Everybody kind of wanted to make them look, you know, a little racier. They didn't want to have, that's why all these fenders were chopped off, why things were hacked away, because people wanted them to look a little slicker at the back. Let's have a quick gander in the fuel tank here. There's some really, really minor surface rust in that center gallery there. A little bit up there, you can see. But it's not atrocious in there. It's pretty decent. Looking back in this area on this side, looks pretty good. A little bit of evapor rust or whatnot in there will take care of all of that without any difficulty at all. All right, so got a little bit excited, got a little bit ahead of myself here, and forgot to turn the camera on while I was doing this. So retrospective here, all I've done is I've popped off the this hose and drained the coolant out. And around this side, I removed this hose off the pipe in here. Took the this basically sits up here like that. Took that off the top radiator outlet, unbolted the thermostat, and now this is one of the things that's different with a 1990 to a 1989. You got this real small hose here which runs across the top of that crossover coolant pipe through there. It runs all the way around the other side here. It comes back onto the radiator. All right, so there, the horn is off. I'll take these temperature sensor wires off. We'll label those in a moment. Damn it, I forgot to disconnect the fan. Fan plug disconnected. sure all the coolant is out of here before I put it in storage. Okay, radiator's out, and now we have much better access to all of those nuts for the exhaust studs. Now it still seems to me that to remove those, that oil cooler is going to have to get unbolted for sure. See that? That's not even an exhaust spring. There's no way that should be that loose. It's just too easily stretched. There's the silencer and the mid pipe off. Oh, these are coming off nice and easy. I did hit them with a little bit of heat from my butane torch and then cooled them with some PB Blaster, because PB Blaster is not flammable, but some of the other ones are, so you kind of got to be careful. Okay, so I unbolted the oil cooler, so it's kind of loose, and I've got the trying to get the oil cooler bracket out of here, but it's, that's out of there. Now that that's out, these halves should come out a little bit easier, maybe. Okay, that is finally the headers out of there. Anyway, that job is done. They're off. Everything can start to get cleaned up now and get ready to go on the 89 bike. So, all right, I think that's going to wrap it up for this first video for the ZXR750 replica that we're going to do. The main purpose of this video was just to get those pipes off so we can put them on the 1989 project, but needed to capture the first part of that disassembly process for this video series. So hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next one.